Alright, so for the first time in a while, I was feeling inspired to make a take regarding an alternative Smash roster, particularly inspired by this post on Smashboards from Martian Snake. I'll be sure to link it in the description. Be sure to, check out this take on it as well, and I think some other users did their takes, and share your take too if you've got one. The big twist on these rosters, if you weren't reading before, is that each character on that roster has to have made at least one other appearance outside of Smash on that same platform. So if you're in Smash 64, you need to appear in another N64 game. So once again, if you just want to look at the rosters, pause. Here's Smash 4's roster. This is where things started to get a little tricky, but also more fun. I'll dive a little more detailed on it shortly. And here's Ultimate as well, not an everyone is here situation. So I guess it would have been, more like a normal approach, I guess, with the roster itself. But once again, I evaluated everyone who was actually in Ultimate as well as everyone I had added in previous games, and this is the final result. And here's where things got really crazy. I have a whole ass spreadsheet for everything. So, I would list a game that, just off the top of my head, that I knew that character appeared in. If I couldn't think of anything, I highlighted it yellow, and I eventually came back and added characters who were on that council who, I don't know, I tried to keep it like if it was a third-party character, I used someone else from that company. If it was, a franchise with, a good selection of characters to choose from, I tried to keep it within that franchise. Smash 4 is, like I said, when things got a little more interesting. That's when I got the spreadsheet out, because I was just having a hard time keeping track of everything. But because I believe Martian Snake did a separate roster for 3DS and Wii U, I did a combined one where you had to have appeared on both consoles. But I was a little more generous. Like, I think Martian Snake wasn't counting remakes like Star Fox 64 3D or something like NES Remix, where I did count stuff like that. Otherwise, it probably would have been even crazier than it wound up being. Like, I know Fire Emblem in particular. Granted, I like Fire Emblem and I like, going all in to see how it turns out. But it did kind of get wackier than I was expecting when we wound up picking Virion. And I'm going to scroll down here because we also got Long Ku making it in. But yeah, there was slim pickings. Like everyone knows, a lot of Fire Emblem attention from that point. I guess I should note too with Pokemon, like I'm not super into Pokemon or familiar with a lot of the games. I just kind of assumed that all of the major Pokemon would probably appear in the spin-offs if they were also in Smash. And I don't know, personally, I wasn't too interested in just picking out another random one. I guess if you want to make your take and dive into more detail to see if there is anyone eligible to replace and who you would like to see in their place, feel free to do that. But it's my personal take, so I just didn't feel like going that deep for that. The orange highlighted ones are pretty much all your Konami reps in Ultimate. That's because, it's kind of a technicality. Like, you had a singular port for Metal Gear Solid and for Castlevania to this point, because who knows, just a year ago, Rhythm Heaven wouldn't have been able to be in the Switch version, but a singular collection port, probably minimal content, just kind of, emulating it or whatever they do to, bring them to modern systems. And I just thought that was maybe a bit too much of a stretch. Maybe you can say the same thing about the Street Fighter characters, but there's a lot of collections that have some Street Fighter in it. from, like I said, I could only find one for the Konami stuff. And Ultimate kind of worked out too, where I was able to bring everyone back from previous games who also appeared on Switched, like on the dot if I excluded Snake, to when we hit our newcomers, and then I have to start looking at who could have actually been a newcomer. Although in this case, there's a lot of characters in Ultimate who missed their debut game under these conditions, so a lot more general, more of a normal count of newcomers in comparison to what we actually got. But yeah, we'll have a link to this spreadsheet on Google Sheets in the description as well. It was honestly just a fun little challenge to do when I had some spare time, and hopefully you enjoyed my take and could maybe use this idea to make your own take if you got some free time